Okay, YouTube. Today I'm interviewing Ginette Matacia Lucas. I knew her dad just a little bit. He helped me in the 90s with some of my things when I was searching on the mystery glyphs. And Ginette is Lewis's daughter, and so we've got her on the line now. So she's agreed to talk to us about treasure hunting and dowsing. And so with that, Ginette, I'll just turn it over to you. Maybe give us a little bit of your background, how you learned this stuff, and just kind of go from there.
That sounds great. All right, so folks, I'm interested in the challenge of the search. Love mysteries, love solving them. I like seeking new solutions to find treasure, which I get calls on all the time. I combine the human mind and parapsychology. If you don't know what parapsychology is, it's basically the paranormal. I apply scientific knowledge. So we use drones. We use high-tech equipment to find the items under the dirt. It could be 1 foot. It could be 10 feet. I've had clients where they called me and said, hey, can you find something in the ocean? And they found a shipwreck worth of millions of dollars. I've found a bunch of things, which we're going to talk about during the show. I want to tell people that you don't have to be a dowser to find treasure. You can use your body, which is called deviceless body dowsing. You can use the pendulum to find dowsing, to use during dowsing, which is called mat dowsing, or you can use the pendulum to ask a bunch of questions. It's more lengthy. Mat dowsing is a lot easier. When we work on our projects, we get calls for looking at oil wells, water wells, various treasures, whether it's in a fence, a brick, or stone. We also find underground tunnels, caves, and lost pipes. So here's my dad's background. My father, Lewis, attended engineering school at the University of Virginia and Loyola University in California. He finally graduated at Elizabethtown College. He has enough credits for 2 masters. So he's not a dummy. He's very high-tech oriented. He has a degree in technology and land surveying. He served in the U.S. Army and the Marine Corps finally as a topographical surveyor for the Philippines and continued successfully in his career as a licensed land surveyor in 6 eastern states. His surveying experience has led him to dowsing, which he studied and applied for over 50 years in finding missing objects and items. He considers both his students and me, his daughter, his legacy in the field of dowsing. Now, a lot of people know my father for canoeing. He's written 4 books on canoeing. He also works at the Red Cross. So he was a volunteer to teach people how to swim. He was a true athlete. He started flying an airplane at the age of 13. He was a bugle boy in the town of Charlottesville during World War II when people came home to bury them, not World War II, the Korean War. It was probably the tail end of World War II, but he also helped with, unfortunately, funerals for the vets, for putting them in the ground for the cemetery, and he would play the bugle. Multi-talented man, a great professional, has a heck of a lot of legacy to leave for people to learn from, and he has a lot of books. There aren't a lot of books left. I am going to be editing one of our books, which is really cool. It's called Buried Treasure Hunting and Parapsychology, combining parapsychology. There are only a few books left, so go ahead.
I don't think I knew of that book. Lewis sent me several of his books, with the treasure auroras and stuff like that, but I don't know that he sent me that one. So, man, I'm interested. I'm going to have to get that from you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Unfortunately, there's only 3 left. All the other ones on the internet are fraud, and they do not have permission to sell them. Everything he's done is copywritten, which is great. Yep. Because we can reproduce them, but they really do need editing. The canoeing books are perfectly edited. My mom was his editor. I think the thing about people is, just copy it for me. Well, the problem is it's copywritten. So let's move on, and I'll tell you a couple more minor things about my father. He invented the L-rod. A lot of people don't know that. In dowsing, a lot of people use a fork and stick to find treasure or water, etc. And you don't need to use a fork and stick. You can use an L-rod, which is basically clipping off a coat hanger and shaping it into an L-rod. You can also buy them now, and I sent you copies of pictures that you can post for your listeners.
Okay.
You can use what's called auger, and it's a one straight line metal, and it can actually pick up, just like fork and stick, the attraction of treasure. Like, not money. Money is a bear because it disintegrates. But I will tell you that coinage, crystals, missing persons all come under the same venue, and it does react, which is great. So that gives you a general idea about my father. There is one more I guess I have to add. He was hired by the U.S. government and federal agencies to work for them to locate various things, including missing soldiers overseas, booby traps, bombs during the Vietnam era, and we also worked for another foreign government to help them on finding their tunnels. So we had a broad range of experience, and a lot of people are not going to do what we do, but treasure hunting is family friendly. We're here for you. Go with your question.
All right. So when you said that he hired or worked with the government on finding tunnels, bombs, all that stuff, that he did that through dowsing, right?
He did. There is a show on a TV show, radio show called Coast to Coast. It wasn't with George Norrie at the time, unless George did a second show. But Coast to Coast AM radio interviewed him about the dowsing work and his work with the government, whether it be the CIA, the FBI, DIA, Department of Intelligence. He additionally worked for the military. A lot of the government agencies will not give references. They just refuse. So a lot of the material is still considered classified.
Okay. And then you was telling me, Ginette, that while they was there, you was a young girl, and you was there when the military came, and your involvement and how you learned to douse and that stuff. Tell us your background and how you became involved in that. And
sure. My father got a call from the military hearing that you could use dowsing to locate booby traps and bombs for the Vietnam War. So General McMaster and his staff showed up, a bunch of Marines, and they wanted to learn how to douse. It was very tough for them because even though it's training, visual is better. So when you have someone else who knows what they're doing, you use them as a tool to train. So my father called my brother, and being the little Italian girl, Scottish girl I am, I got competitive, ran out in the yard and said, I'll show you more than that. So my brother showed them where and how to use the L rods when they open. That means, yes, that's where you're finding the water. Now, it could be water, booby traps, or bombs. So I said, why are you doing that? Do tracking just like the American Indians and use the L rods. Okay, you found your water. Now track where you need to go to next for the next situation. So let's say you're looking for treasure and you're on a path and you found your first coin, and say, show me the path to get to the next coin. So you can use the L rods to do the same thing, or you can do map dowsing. So I showed them the way how to do the dowsing from tracking standpoint, and I went down to a creek bed, not knowing it was even there. They dug about a foot, and there was this underground creek bed. And that was really helpful because when you're looking for communication devices or bombs or whatever, it's applicable. When it comes to treasure, a lot of people think, oh, the hoard is all in one spot. That's not always the case. As you can see in Oak Island, they're finding coinage here, there, and everywhere. And, it's all over the place. When they're finding the china, they're finding the wood, they're finding the bones. It's not always in one set spot. And yet, it leads you to the spot. So they should have done tracking with dowsing. They did call the American Society of Dowsers, who are in Vermont, and they asked them to donate their time to pinpoint where the site is. Well, that's really great. If you've got 50 people saying, here's the site, but they're amateur dowsers, it's going to take a while to find it. Plus, did they go according to footage? When you douse, you can actually ask how deep. I think the tragedy is with berry treasure hunting, you think, oh, I'm going to go out there and dig a couple feet and there's something. Some locations, it's as deep as 35 feet.
Or deeper, yeah.
Pretty deep. I mean, it's crazy. Okay, so I'm gonna recommend a couple of nonprofit groups to help people with dowsing. One is the American Society of Dowsers, and they're located at 184 Brainerd, Brainerd Street, Gainesville, Vermont, 05828 USA. Their telephone number is 802-684-3417. I think to become a member is about $75. So if you're going to become a serious treasure hunter, go join them. It's a lot of fun. Overseas, there's also the British Society of Dowsers. One of the key former presidents of the British Society of Dowsers is a friend of mine, Graham Gardner. Great guy, and he can teach you how to dowse overseas. I'm sure there's very little time that you have to put into it. But on the application of finding your treasure, overseas there are a lot more treasures. Here, you're going to go to a town and you're going to find one. Overseas, you could go to a town and find 50 probably.
Right.
So it's tougher. You know, you have to use map dowsing to pinpoint what you're looking for. On some people, they use their dreams to find treasure, and there's the Edgar Cayce Foundation in Virginia Beach, and there's also a big chapter in New York. Another great group that you're seeing a lot of TV shows on for ancient aliens is the Fortean Group, and they're normally headquartered out of Maryland, and they're called the Fortean Times, and they have articles on a variety of things. Most of their material, the research has been completed, and the facts are correct. And sometimes, of course, they add in the theory. I think that a lot of people need to know that treasure hunting is family friendly. When I sent you pictures, what was great was I sent pictures of crystals. So I've had people call me and can you map out and dowse crystals. They're not missing, but you've got to find them. And so I sent you pictures which you can put up for people, and that was a picture of me in my 30s digging up crystals. And in my hand, you'll see a crystal. I dowsed it out, and I pinpointed the area, and I think I dug 6 inches, maybe a foot, and you can see this huge crystal in my hand, the size of a little small water bottle, which is not a bad size.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a very expensive piece. Plus, the point on it was perfect. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was perfect.
So,
and that's a lot of fun to get trial examples of how to find crystals. Now, a lot of people, I'll say this to people, you can go to the New York and North Carolina diamond mines and try to find diamonds and practice your dowsing going there first. People have found $500,000, $250,000, $1 million diamonds, actual real diamonds over the Herkimer diamond mine. And it's a great experience because it's a practice session again and again and again. Before you know it, you become very good at it.
So that gives me a couple questions for you. But back one, when you found the crystal, did you map dowse it, or was you in the area and you dowsed it? You knew there was crystals in the areas. How did you get to that area?
Well, that's a great question. A friend of ours, what he did was he leased the mineral rights for a property. So you can't just go on property. That's the same thing as, any kind of treasure job. You just can't just go out there and dig, especially park property is illegal. Now, they are turning on the laws on park property. If the government was smart, they would say, listen, you can register, find treasure. We will send a federal agent with you. If you find something, it's 50-50. There's so much treasure out there. For example, in Nevada, they had stagecoach robberies. The gold or silver was never found, and there are bars of it. They look like little cigars on your finger, melted into gold. I mean, it just amazes me what's out there. So the parks are off limits right now, but again, the laws are changing. When it came to the crystal find, our friend, a doctor, leased the property. I don't recall how many acres, maybe 20. And we pinpointed on the map where to go first for the best high-quality crystals. So your question will get you the truth on what you're looking for. So if I said, I'm looking for the clearest, you're going to find the clearest using map dowsing. Then you go out in the field, and you can use the L-rods or you can pendulum dowse. Some dowsers use longitude, latitude. I remember years ago, just an example, I was working on a downed airplane for fun, and it was hilarious because when you're looking for same thing like crystal or like a downed airplane, You can't just be generic and say, show me where the Dow's airplane is. Because when I did it, I came up, they found 5 airplanes, but it wasn't the one I was looking for. So I screwed up. And like I said, every time you do it, it's a practice run, and you have to apply the proper questions. So on crystals, for example, or treasure, we'll talk about crystals first. On that property where I found crystals, I asked for the clearer crystals, the higher quality crystals, the ones that will leave me the most expensive, a higher retail end, and that's what we started finding. It was pretty amazing. They were shocked. The doctor was shocked to just spend a week there and find one. We spent, 15 minutes and we found one. And it was on and on and on. And then when you find them, you have to have your vehicle ready to transport them. Plus, you have to put the high-end crystals also in bubble wrap so they don't get broken. A lot of people don't realize it's a full-blown industry. You have to be prepared. I mean, not only that, you can't go alone because you have snakes out there. I live in Arkansas, and they have copperheads and really friendly snakes. I mean, we had bears walking near us. It's creepy.
Yeah. So
I tell people all the time, go to Bass Pro Shop. Get prepared.
Yeah. So can anybody learn how to douse, map douse, douse in the field? Is that something that's learnable? Or is some people have more ability than others? What have you found?
I tell people, okay, so you have several questions. One, can anybody douse? If you're going to douse for water, it's not that tough, but you do need training. All right, so you can develop that skill. 2, when it comes to treasure, it's more specialized, it's more intricate. There are a lot more, you have to learn from an experienced person to gain knowledge of what you're searching for. The investment is not as bad as going after oil, because oil is real expensive. And we found oil wells, and you pinpoint it via longitude, latitude, and depth, and so forth. That's really difficult. It's a challenging job. When it comes to treasure hunting, it is very family friendly. You can take the kids, but again, you have to take someone to watch the area for wild animals and snakes and that kind of thing. Because typically people go out during the heat and they forget about, I need a machete for protection, I need a gun for the bear. It is very complicated, and there are a lot of details people forget.
Right.
Regarding sensitivity to douse, a lot of people who do the L rods do pretty good. The fork and stick, they have to learn how to identify the pole. But when it comes to pendulum, map dowsing, I think that people really need an expert to teach them how to do it.
But anybody can do it if they have the right expert to teach them, you think?
I do think so. I think that some people have more sensitivity. Like you said, you had a relative who had an accident, and he's going to be a lot more sensitive to the perception of the pull. It's a magnetic pull, and for example, the Chinese used to use this weird carving, and they would put it in the hand, and depending on if it went down in the ditch, that was a yes. It went up, that's a no. It's all directions. So I sent you a sample of one of our copywritten recommended usages. It's a diagram that shows you yes, no, maybe, danger, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And you can show that to your followers. It's really good in the sense that if you're going to learn to douse, that's our floor plan. It's our foundation of learning. And if you start there at the beginning and then start learning from simple projects. Again, I do find people that drink more water are better at dowsing. I sometimes I get bored of water, so I'll drink that Nestle Splash flavored water.
Yeah.
But I drink a ton of water. I mean, I always have. And the only thing is when you douse, I have found it can deplete the water, so you have to hydrate. I wonder if it heats up the body, and so if you drink the water, your perception is higher. you said you had a relative that had a near-death experience. I had 3, and I think those people become more and more sensitive. When I eat, if I'm going to douse, I eat very lightly before I do my work. Like today, for example, after I talk to you, I have some projects to work on. Treasure, actually. We're doing some Civil War work. We're doing some Yorktown location work. Some of the items are easier to find than others. For example, we found in about 40 acres, we found a 1700 cannonball. And how do we know? Because you look up the size, and 1700 Yorktown, what they did was they had to have the smaller cannonball to go farther from the water inland. And so he found it, I would almost say 5 acres, maybe 5 acres to the water, and then from the water, maybe another 5 acres over. That's probably where the ship was, because it couldn't come in too far. So, and of course you've got the receding water line, so that's a challenge.
Yeah.
But on 40 acres, he found the cannonball and the other items I mentioned. And I couldn't get anything else. And it was funny because he searched the whole thing using a metal detector, and that's all he found.
Oh, really?
And he went right there where I said the cannonball would be. And not knowing it was a cannonball, I was dowsing for treasure that was related to the time frame. And again, the development of the question is critical.
So if somebody wanted to learn how, is there some books out there that you recommend, or do you recommend like the American, you said the American Society of Dowsing, or how would they go about getting the right training, the right information, the
next step? I would say if it were me, I might buy a book or rent a book. I mean, the local libraries have some books for sale, and some of the youth bookstores have books for sale. I don't, like there's Feng Shui for Dummies. I don't think there's a book on dowsing for dummies, but there is a book called The Divining Hand, and it's by a guy that worked for the CIA, and that's how my dad got some work from the CIA. And what it does is it teaches you, each paragraph covers what dowsing can actually do. And my dad is the entire chapter 11.
Really?
And so it shows him doing dowsing for underground tunnels, booby traps, bombs, that kind of thing. The author was Christopher Bird, and Christopher shows you the basics, and then he shows you a variety of topics that you can go for. Christopher lived in Hawaii, but he was a big smoker, cigarette smoker, so that's what killed him. And I think the fact that he got into dowsing, he would have been very successful, except for he died from smoking. I do tell people, you can smoke all you want, but I do think it inhibits your success ratio. You want to smoke a cigar once in a while, that's fine, but I do think cigarette smoking is a barrier to your perception level.
Really? Interesting.
I do. Are you a smoker?
No, I'm not, but it's interesting that would do that.
Well, you're actually tightening your blood veins, and you don't want to do that, because when you're dowsing, you're actually getting a pulse, and you're getting a magnetic pull, and you're stopping that perception level, you're stopping the sensitivity. I have theories on all this stuff, because I've been doing it for so long, and I watch it, and I see the consistency and the patterning, and everything's a pattern, so I find that it's very, very helpful.
So I've got a story of a guy that I knew who did map dowsing and dowsing, and he was kind of self-taught. He didn't learn from anybody, so I don't know how he figured that out or anything like that. But he came over to my house one time, and I found some symbols neatly carved, kind of like Egyptian symbols. They're not Egyptian, but that's the best way to kind of describe them. Carved neatly into the cliffs high in the mountains east of Provo, Utah. Here, in fact, that's what I was working with your dad on. But anyways, he came over to my house and was talking to me about them, and I kept on telling him there was the mountains east of Provo, and he kept on saying Provo Canyon, and I got tired of correcting him, and so I just let him keep on thinking Provo Canyon. Well, he left my house, and he came back the next day, and he says, I want to talk to you about something. He says, when you told me them symbols, those mystery glyphs are in Provo Canyon, I said, I never told you they're in Provo Canyon. I told you that they're mountains east of Provo. He says, well, that's what I wanted to show you. And he had a piece of a map that he'd map dowsed, and it was ripped off. He says, they're here, aren't they? And I couldn't tell from that map because it was ripped off from the whole piece. I couldn't tell where they was at. So, but he bought the rest of the map and put it together, and he was right dead on where these mystery glyphs are. And that surprised me. Yet I watched him dig a bunch of holes and was never ever to find anything. So I'm wondering if it's a case of he didn't really know what he was doing, or a case of, and I want to get into this later because I know your dad talked about it, ghost signals.
Well, there's several things. The problem with buried treasure hunters are they are super confidential. Instead of being what I grew up calling a weenie, just go ahead and share it. But before you share it, have a contract called non-disclosure, have a contract on confidentiality, have the people sign it, have it notarized, and people can't move forward. But I will tell you, a lot of buried treasure hunters are just 50% authentic, and the other 50% are a complete waste of time. I mentioned to you earlier before we talked that I had a client who called. My standard fee for treasure hunting is between $500-600 for assessment, and then I give you the information. That doesn't mean I'm going to go out in the field and go hunt for you. Right. You got to get off your boat. You've got to go hunt. And it's hilarious because a lot of these people call me back. I don't have a car. I thought that included search and seizure.
Really?
I said, really? I said, do you know a flight by itself could cost $500 or $600 to get to Vegas? I said, think about it. I said, I made it very clear to you. I'm doing the assessment. I'm pinpointing where the treasure is, and the rest is up to you. If you want me to get a team out there, you have to put up a ton of money. And these are armchair buried treasure hunters. Now, you can be an armchair buried treasure hunter and still find some good stuff. I have a guy doing it right now in Florida. He's going to the beaches. I pinpoint the sites. He's going to go over there and use the metal detector. I'll never forget there's a professor on the internet complaining about me. Oh, she did this, she did that, she said she did this. Oh, I can prove it. The proof is in the pudding. It's not that I think I found this or tried to find that. I do work right from my home on map dowsing. I pinpoint the site, and then the search and rescue goes out, or the treasure hunter, or whoever they might be, depending on the subject matter. The man that you worked with had a map. He doesn't want you to know where it is, so he cut off the grid pattern. And you don't have a clue where he is. And then you saw the material, so you know it was a match. So he's over in the canyon you mentioned. But here's the thing I've noticed is the ghost signals or the hieroglyphics or the data that he got off the rocks, they could simply be a directional tool or confirming on the stone, oh, the items are near here, or 30 paces. Since we don't know who came to America first, it could have been the Romans, it could have been the Jews, it could have been almost anybody. I mean, the Indians were here first. Okay, they're landowners. But the problem is, everybody's buried something. I mean, we have the stagecoach robberies, which I think are phenomenal. I think there's going to be a lot more of those found. And I think that we can't be naive about what's out there, that you're going to see lots of signals. So, yes, the ghost, and we'll have you do another show on ghosts and treasure, because I've had clients that have been thrown out of caves by a ghost.
Really?
During the Spaniard time frame, they buried treasure. I had a client, and his best friend found a gold bar, possibly Montezuma's treasure, but one piece, all right? And when he did, he got thrown out of the cave. Now, what does that mean? The Spanish used to kill their slaves, so probably Montezuma's guys, his people. They killed them, and they cut their feet off to be there and secure the site. It sounds disgusting. They made them suffer, and they said you can never leave the site. So it's sort of a semi-curse, and unfortunately, today, buried treasures are being thrown around, and it is what it is. I tried to go use my dream work And I tell people all the time, contact the Edgar Casey Foundation on dream work. I've lectured for them and talked about my dream work and either prediction for finding treasure or describing treasure or missing person. When you use your dream work, there is a process to give you better information. And for example, you and I are going to consider doing another show. And so this is just part one. And we'll talk about how to use your dreams to find buried treasure. I mean, there are ways to get rich, but there is a process.
So if somebody wanted to hire you to do work for them, what kind of information do you need from them? Do they need to have a story, something that they've researched and tracked down, and then you kind of tell them, yes, this is a real true treasure, there is something, and you tell them where to go, or how does that work?
Well, this is what I do, is I tell people, if they bring me a map, it's like a standard fee of $500 or $600. And they have one treasure. If they want me to track it, I charge a little bit more, not much. And then if they say, okay, Ginette, we want to see if there are other treasures around it, like the stagecoach robberies, for example. You're tracking all those different robberies and things that were hidden by Jesse James or the James brothers. They have some robberies that are so amazing, the train robberies, and they haven't found all those things. They just haven't. They're sitting out there waiting to be found. And those guys, they used the ghost technique, so they probably cursed an area, and you get your, excuse my language, your hiney kicked by a ghost, or pushed down by a ghost, or thrown by a ghost. How they did it, I don't know. It certainly could have been a verbal, I cursed this area, and anybody coming here is going to be thrown out of the cave or thrown out of the area. Again, there's a lot of circumstances. And, for example, on the stagecoach robberies, you could track the situation and say, okay, so I want to go from this site, let's call it site A, to find site B, C, D, E, F. Why are you going to go after one treasure when you can go after 10? So I charge more for that.
Right.
And I tell people, it's an investment. You don't get your money back. You don't ask to get your money back. I mean, I've had people pay me, and they're like, I want my money back. Okay, you're paying for a service. You don't get your money back. It's an investment. If you don't go searching for it, that's your decision.
Right.
If you're treasure hunter, you get out there and get it done. I mean, we see these people on HGTV. They do a great job. They get in, they get it done. Treasure hunters, get out there and get it done.
So without divulging any secrets or anybody's confidentiality, treasure sites, or anything like that, have you had successful treasure hunting, worked with professional treasure hunters, or had successful sites found and stuff like that? Can you talk about anything like that?
Sure. I did years ago when I was younger, in my late 30s or so, maybe 35. I was approached to help find some missing stolen goods by Al Capone and his group. And this is what's interesting about treasure. So I'm going to give you the story. All right, so Al Capone robbed a government truck full of silver bars, and then once they robbed it, they took it to a holding place, and who cares if it's an inside job? Who cares about the story? The story that's most important when you're treasure hunting is, what are the facts? There was a government truck. It was transporting silver bars. How many silver bars? And what happened was that Al Capone went to his buddies that all robbed the situation, the truck. They were all divided up. Now, we don't know how many silver bars were on the truck because somebody didn't do all their research. And when we found our silver bars, it was found, when we had the final site, it was found with high-tech equipment in 45 minutes. All right, now, I found these two bodies and remains in 45 minutes. So what happened on this particular case was that Al Capone divided it up. So let's say he had 5 guys involved, and the guy that I found his stuff, because I tracked him, was a guy by the name of Ray Nitty, N-I-T-T-Y. And Ray lived in Chicago. He was Al Capone's right arm. He was Al Capone's most dangerous guy. And he this is hilarious, but Al Capone's guy loved to travel far away from Chicago every once in a while, and he would hide his stolen goods. And he would go to a bed and breakfast, and he would tell the farmer, if he went there regularly. And here's the story. Basically, he loved the bed and breakfast and the pancakes and the way they treated him. They treated him human. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. The guy was a monster. He would kill people. He would torture them. He was not a nice guy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
He was horrible. He's a guy with a baseball bat, if that tells you something. And, yeah, nice. So what he did was he got over 60 bars of treasure, and the couple that I worked for gave me, there were 3 sites, and each site had, here's the bad news. One had 40,000 acres, one had 200,000 acres. I'm just doing approximate.
Yeah.
One had 10,000 acres. So all different locations all over Illinois. So they said, which one is a match to what we're looking for? The treasure stolen by Al Capone. And I browsed it up and I said, this one. It's a little bit more complex than that.
Right.
And it was really funny because I found it somewhat during the time frame of how they're going after Al Capone treasure. But what's amazing is, if you're going to find Al Capone's treasure, why not go for his business partner's treasure, then track backwards and go for Al Capone's treasure? Because when I had the 3 sets of maps, and I said, this one is really hot. Literally, my hand got hot.
Really?
It was so uncanny. Oh, my God, it was so fascinating. And then I tried another technique I used, and I dowsed it, and what I did is I put my hand over the map, and my hand got hot again.
Huh.
And then I used an L-rod, and the L-rod went crazy, and I used a bobber. There's a thing called camera and oil meter, and it's absolutely fun as heck, and it reacted funny. And if you get this much consistency, get rid of the other maps, put them aside, focus on only the one treasure. So then we had lunch, and and again, what you eat will cause problems with your perception level. So I tell people, don't eat heavy food. So I was a solid person. Yeah, I know that sounds silly, but it makes you less sensitive. So I ate salad, I drank my water, I drank cheese, I didn't have steak, I made the people I worked with eat lightly, and I said, okay, so we pulled out this 200,000 acre property. And what I did was I divided it up in 50,000 acres apiece, and then I kept going, from 50,000 acres, I went down to 10 acres, then I went down to 1 acre, and so forth. And it was really interesting because if you're going to hide treasure, you typically need a road to get there. So what was interesting when we went down to, finally the 10 acres, there was a road nearby. And so, I mean, if you're carrying 50 bars of silver, just one alone was amazing to hold. So I sent you a picture of it. Lewis is holding the silver bar.
Yeah.
It's the size of a water bottle. I would say the size of a 16-ounce water bottle. It was like holding 10 water bottles full in one hand. So I think it was weighed in under 7 pounds, but it's solid. Do you know what I mean? It's mass, so it feels heavier, and it wasn't like water, so it didn't wash. And it was a really interesting story. So, okay, so when I doused it, I said, show me everything I need to know. So I was like, well, it's under 36 feet. So you have to have the equipment that can go find treasure at 46 feet, or why bother? And then the people pulled over the road. I said, go to this road and go in approximately so many feet. So we used Dowsing to pinpoint on the map. We used the road as a landmark. We used the house as a landmark. So if the house was a mile away, I said, are we talking 100 feet, 200 feet? So you have to figure out how many feet are in a mile, and then you dowse that accordingly. And the house is a landmark, and you keep asking all these questions, and you can only work an hour at a time. So you do have to take a break. You do have to drink your water. I tell people one of the free drinks I like on the market is Mr. Juice, and the reason I like it is it's not a soda pop. It's more of a fluid. And every time you, like I said, like right now, my body is heating up. And that means I'm on target, on target, on target. And we're focusing on a berry trigger. And your body can heat. It's almost like, you ever had that hot stove?
Yeah.
But listen, here's what you guys think. All right, you're going to meet a woman. I'm not hot on her.
Yeah.
That gives you some real quick realization. I'm either hot on her or I'm cold on her. I'm cold. All right, well, that means it's not a match or it is a match. So, okay, so let's go in the temperature reaction. I've got heat in my hand. I've got two landmarks, the road, the house, and then an empty freaking field of acres. And I thought, okay, so show me, the other trick I use is going to be in my book. And I said, show me what else is in the treasure. Now, I'm not going to give you that information because it'll be in my book and it's in my book. Because we have a picture of the actual silver bar. And here's the good news and bad news. My dad, they paid me my services, so I got my money. I did not get my percentage rate from the silver bars. So this is what happens with, berry treasure hunters. They don't always pay up. They say they're going to, but they don't.
Yeah.
So you do have to get paid for your services up front.
Right.
But my dad bought one of the silver bars for a really good price. And unfortunately, he was working downtown D.C. because I'm from the D.C. Richmond area. I'm from D.C., but I travel to D.C. and I live in Richmond. But here's the thing: is I'm in the little quadrangle. I'm from Charlottesville originally, Louis is from Charlottesville. So we do this. I work in Charlottesville, D.C., Richmond, and then I get calls from all over the world.
Right.
What happens that's important to tell people is when you get your treasure, put it somewhere safe. All right. Louis had the treasure, and I don't know why. I think he was going for a lecture, and he was going to show the silver bar. And unfortunately, he had it in the car, and he was robbed at gunpoint in D.C.
You're kidding.
So that's why I bring up. No, I am not kidding.
Wow.
Now, here's the key factor about me that makes me more unique than other people. I would have taken that fine with that phenomenal story to the press. And I would have given it back to the government because it would have made a great movie deal. And, okay, Al Capone stole the treasure. He figured it up. They maybe hid it. They made it with a creep. He went to this farm. He hid his stuff. A dazzle found it. Yada, yada. But here's what happened. I don't have the imprinted number on the silver bar. There is one. And that takes you back to the robbery, which proves provenance. And because it was stolen, my dad told the guy, I got a silver bar, and he goes, give me your money. He was a heroin addict.
Wow.
Give me your money. And my dad goes, look, I'll tell you what, I've hidden $1,000 in my car, and there's, $1,000 in the car. There's a silver bar. Take whatever you want. Now, if it was me, I would have said there's just $1,000 in the car. I wouldn't have told somebody about a historical piece of treasure in my car, which, who does that? Who carries a special thing in the car? It's like, what are you thinking?
Of course, if somebody's holding a gun on you, you're just thinking about your life, and your life flashes before you, and you just want to get out of that situation. So, nothing's worth your life, so, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what happened was he was with a survey crew. I think there were 5 of them, and my father thought, you know what, each one of them was worth this money. So he goes, because he held a gun to one of the guy's heads, and the guy just, I don't mean to be rude, and twitching his pants. It was horrible. He was about 22, and that's who the heroin addict put the gun up to the guy's head.
Wow.
And he goes, he's first. And because he thought, you're a father, and this guy's going to shoot this kid.
Yep.
And and it's my best friend's son.
Wow.
And I got to do whatever I got to do.
Yeah. Yep.
He gave him the keys to the car, and he goes, this is our only truck because this is the survey crew. He goes, take it, whatever you got to do. Well, here's the good news. My dad, when you're working on a survey job or working on some site, what happens is there's a law on working on a job. That's a federal law that you must be safe working on a job. Did you know that? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
And I didn't either. I did the research, and I said, guess what? There's this, I do a lot of research on the pain in the neck, and I don't ever put anything down. I'm like, wait, look at this. I found this law, because I'm a former PI, that you can sue the government, the contractor, you can sue whoever was doing the project, and I think it was not the train company, but the commuter train company. And I said, you can sue all of them because you were put in an unsafe environment. And they knew because other people had been robbed.
Really?
So I said, you can sue. Yeah, and I said, you can sue. And guess what? He won over $30,000 automatically because it was in an unsafe environment.
Wow.
Yeah, so he hadn't gone to the press. And I tell people, listen, you get upset with me. You say you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Guess what? The media is there for your protection. They're not always fake news. This fake news garbage is baloney. Trump uses it all the time. Oh, fake news is fake news. You know what? Say what you got to say. All right, you're building a foundation of falsehood, and yet at the same time, you can't remember some of the stuff you're saying. So let's move forward and say, okay, media is real for your protection. Right now, I have a project going on, and I might use the media for protection of the situation. If I have to go to the press and do a press release, I'm going to do it. And if the press wants the story, they're going to move forward and they're going to take it and run with it. I think there are cases where it's mandatory you call the press to protect yourself.
I agree with you, and that is the only reason I've started this YouTube channel is because I'm working on some things, and if it happens, I want to be able to release it, worldwide. And the only way I could figure that I could do that and make sure it get out there is to have a big enough YouTube channel that it got out there. So yeah, I agree with you 100% about that.
It's a lot of people don't realize social media and YouTube is much better than people think. I would be doing it, but here's my dilemma as a female. I'm a mommy. I'm an older mommy. My kids are still in high school and college. I can't just go do YouTube. I have a lot to balance. I'm very domesticated. Can you tell?
Yeah.
So I tell people, listen, almost every story has twists and turns. What was interesting about the buried treasure with Al Capone was I got the job, I got paid, I felt happy that I got paid. Okay, I got to meet the people that found the material. The brother came into my town and he hugged me to say thank you so much. It was their first joint effort on treasure. They gave me back details to confirm my right or wrong, but fortunately on that one it was all right, all correct, and they were so just happy.
Yeah, I bet they were. Yeah.
No, and they went out and bought more high-tech equipment. They called me a couple times to work on case stories, but the problem is they only wanted to pay me for my service. They didn't want to pay me my 10% or 15% or whatever.
Right.
That's the problem. You don't need to be greedy in this field.
No, you don't. Yeah.
No, and if you don't pay me my commission, you don't get me a second time.
Yep.
So, I've had people that call me up. I had a woman from D.C. Her husband was a cop. I gave her a reading because I do psychic readings. It was a great reading. She didn't want to hear it. I said, your husband's cheating on you. He was pleased. She just didn't want to hear it. She called me back 3 months later. I want my money back. She was such a witch. I said, okay. She goes, well, I want my tape. I said, you don't pay for it. You don't get your tape because I keep all my sessions to have proof of the pudding. And I do the same thing with my treasure hunters. You have to tape because I can say one little thing and you say, oh my God, Ginette said this, and look right in front of us, there it is. It's not just me. It could be another psychic or another dowser, or it could be an astrologer. Pay attention to the details. The proof is in the pudding. I think that a lot of people are unaware. I did want to finish up with going back to my father. I'm sorry, I'm jumping all around, but
that's all right.
With the treasure case that I was talking about with my father, I do want to tell people, if you are working on treasure, buy insurance. Do not go alone. Make sure your car is worthy. Get good quality clothing. You have to wear a hat so you don't get skin cancer. We're in a life right now that everything has to be prevented. And you can't moan and complain that something happened to you if you haven't prevented it. So, it's going to be a smoother job. I'm sure you know that. And it's going to be a more fun job because you have the right people in place and so forth. Now, the big problem in any treasure hunt is going to be the staff, the personnel, that kind of thing. You can buy tons of equipment and find your stuff. If your staff is not trustworthy, you could get killed.
100%. You're right. You have to have people that they're how they function in a treasure salvage situation. Do they get crazy? Do they get gold fever? Do they? You're 100% right. You have to have a reliable, trusted team. Yep.
Yeah, you do. I mean, I can tell a couple other stories that were fun. The man that contacted me at a Dowsing convention and said, "Hey, can you find a ship in the ocean?" And my dad pinpointed a site, and I pinpointed a site, and I said, "No, Dad, it's over here." I just happen to have the talent in certain categories. If you called me and said, "Can you find cash?" and I told people, "I'll give you a certain price because it's 50-50. Cash or dollar bills are disintegrate. So it is more difficult to find paper. I don't know why. I get calls to find missing objects, and I'll share a couple stories that are fun. The ship was found. They didn't pay for my service. They didn't give me my,
Really?
my, no, it was found. It was a multi-million-dollar ship. And he called me out of the blue 2 years after the fact because he knows I could have sued him for the location work, and he had promised me 15%. Now, what was interesting, it was like gold bars. I mean, this was a huge find. And he goes, we didn't listen to you at first. It took like 6 months because we finally went to your site. We went to other people's sites, including my father, and we dropped an anchor right on the ship, right where you said it was.
Really?
Yeah. And he said, "Oh, my God, we couldn't believe it." Okay, so why aren't you paying me? Because he called me to find another ship, and I said, "No, I said, bill me once, you don't get me twice." It ain't happening. Here's a funny story to help people understand information about finding treasure. I get calls for lost money, like, you hide it in your house and you can't remember where you put it. I had a woman who called me regarding, as goofy as it sounds, this happens a lot more than you think. I would say 20% of the time in America. People hide some stuff in their house, they can't remember where they put it, and so it's sort of a lost treasure. And I had a call for someone, I lost my passport. He didn't want to pay me. He demanded the information, but he didn't want to pay me.
Really?
I said, yeah. Huh. And he goes, "We're just about to go to Israel. I need my passport." I said, "Okay, go find them." And, at the time, I think I was offering $150 to pinpoint where his passports were hidden in his house. I mean, oh my God. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So the woman in New England, what happened with her, $150, she had missing her passport, her extra driver's license, $3,000 to $6,000, some other major information, maybe a couple of rings, all in this. People put their items in like a ditty bag type of thing, okay? But it tends to be either a ditty bag or a small ditty bag, like a flat ditty bag. And I said, okay, so we're going to cover this because I'm going to show you the detail, but it's so important on treasure hunting. I said, okay, I see, so she gave me her name, so you do who, and then you do what is missing, so it was the items I just described. When was it missing? You have to write down when. Okay, so she lost it approximately June 10th. So you can say the month of June, and then you have to say the year. You have to say where, so you can write down her address. And some people are so paranoid they won't even give me their address. Some people are so paranoid they won't even give me their full name. And I thought, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I mean, I could find it, but it's easier and faster. That one took about a month because she didn't want to give me a lot of detail. So I had her address, I had her first name, because you have to remember you match up her first name and last name with the passport, So if it's treasure, you got to say, okay, Davy Crockett hid 60 bars of gold. Okay, so who is it? Davy Crockett. What country? USA. What town? Boonville, Tennessee, for example. I'll just give examples.
Yeah.
What's the address? Okay, lot 20,000 acres. Okay, so now you're dealing with 20,000 acres. They send you the map, and then you keep dowsing it out and dowsing it out. Sometimes it's instantaneous, where the heat comes with me, boom, it's done, and sometimes it takes a month. So let's finish up the story on the Boston woman. And the reason I bring this up is because some people don't want to hear the information. They want to, I call it a different path. And I like to track. I'm more like an American Indian. So on her situation, I said, I'm in your house. I feel like I'm in your house, which is a form of remote viewing. And I said, I see this big window. Now, think about it. 6 foot by 6 foot. Now, does that tell you if you've got a window in your house, 6 foot by 6 foot, it could be your sliding glass door, approximately. It could be a window in the house. And my house only has one of those. And I have one sliding glass door. And I said, I'm within feet of, I would say within 6 feet of, when I say I said the item, and I take over the feeling of the item.
Uh-huh.
I am within 6 feet of the window, 6 by 6. And she goes, no, that's not right. It's such a journey. These people are so hilarious. So I said, okay, do you have another 6 foot by 6 foot window? No. So it was a fight. It was ridiculous. And so I charged her $150. And I finally said to her when she was being stubborn, I said, look, you've got issues, okay? And she wanted to blame somebody. And I said, now here's the trick. If I'm in your home, it's not stolen. If I'm outside the home and I see another facility and it doesn't match, then it's stolen. But she was dating 3 different guys, and she thought one of them stole it. And I said, here's what I see, what else I see in the room, which is remote viewing and dowsing. I said, I see a bunch of boxes. And she goes, well, I just moved here in June. I said, you haven't unpacked, it was 6 months later. I said, you haven't unpacked yet? No. And I said, okay, we'll start unpacking, and then I'll start getting some more information. Call me in a week. Okay, so you're going to die laughing. So it's a great story. I said, I see a red coat in a closet in the pocket. Now, how long do you think it took this woman to find this item?
Probably went right to it. If there was a red coat in the closet.
No, she kept saying, I know the guy I dated did it because he was a jailbird. I said, okay, you know what? You're not listening to me. Call me in a week and maybe you'll stop your brain fart. and I swear to God, we have these brick walls up. We just want to believe this or we want to believe that. It is so dumb. And I tell people, I said, what are you thinking? What are you really thinking? I said, you paid me $150. It's nice money. I said, what are you thinking? Really charge you another $150 to not be stupid? So a week later, honest to God, so a week later she calls me. I said, okay, what I want you to do is I want you to go to your coat closet. I want you to open the door. Okay? This is how stupid it can get. Now, look in the closet. Okay? Are there any red coats? She said, there are 3. I said, okay. Which one's closest to the green coat? Because that's what I do. I douse it out.
Okay.
I said, she goes, this one. I said, does it look tailored and fitted? Okay, now what does tailored and fitted mean to you? It's not a G.I. Joe jacket. Okay?
Right.
It's one you wear downtown to church or something.
Yeah.
And, it's just hilarious. I said, pull out that coat. Okay. And this was just hilarious. I get this all the time. She pulled out the coat, and I said, look in that pocket. She looked in the pocket. Nothing. I said, look in the other pocket. She goes, oh. This is how bad it gets.
Really? So it was actually right there, and wow. Interesting.
Yeah, but here's what happened. Originally, it was in the boxes next to the coat closet.
Uh-huh.
All right? And then she unpacked, and she had put it in the closet and not even looked in the pocket.
Wow.
Now, your brain is not thinking about the red coat when you're unpacking, but she had actually touched the red coat. I'm looking at a case right now in Oregon for not treasure, but for a Richmond girl. and she's deceased. And I used my dream work and all my dowsing and everything. And I said, I called them back like a month later. I told them it would take a while to find her. I said, oh my God, you walked right by her.
Really?
Yeah, and they called back, and I've been talking to them, and I said, okay, they've been searching and searching and searching, so I have to pinpoint where they were.
Right.
And when I do work, I can also pick up a smell or an odor.
Huh.
And it's really weird because when I pick up that odor, that's where the body is. So if they can't find it, for example, I'm known for working on the Kaylee Anthony case in Florida, and nobody got my side of the story. On that particular case, I'm told that 2 weeks after they called me, the girl went missing. I said, oh, she's dead and she's over here. We didn't really hear it.
Really?
So what? Yes, I think she went missing in May or June. I don't know. I don't pay attention to some things. I just thought it was such a disgusting case. I didn't feel a lot of pity for the family, and except for the grandmother. And so let's see, they called me in, I think, June. I told them where the body was. They actually went to that particular house. They wouldn't follow through. The telephone man went there in August and said he smelled the body. The cop wouldn't even go look.
Really?
No, so you got, so you got July.
Well, I would imagine, that there's kind of a stigma. Yeah, right. A psychic is telling us where this stuff is, and a lot of disbelieving because it is hard to believe, So I can.
It is. Yeah. It's definitely hard to believe. I mean, So anyway, it was about 4 or 5 months later, and I had to literally get on the phone with the guy who said he was a PI, who wasn't a PI, and I'm a former PI. So, and I said to him, what's your PI number? And he goes, I don't have one. I said, then you're not a PI. No, I'm a PI. I said, okay, so the way it works in being a PI, you either become a cop in the state of Florida, and then you become a PI and you have a license number, or you're a fake. And there's no going around it. Then you have the PIs that work under the auspices of the license of a lawyer. And that's how he became a PI. And I said, that's how you did it. He goes, oh, then I'm a PI. I said, no, you're not. And know for a fact, I lectured in Florida and had great reviews in Florida and Orlando on being a PI who finds missing people. And so anyway, so that guy, I had to literally get on the phone with him and tell him where to go and what to do and all that. Now, here's the tragedy, is on that particular case, and I'm just going to give examples on different treasure cases, because we humans are a treasure, and it was a precious little toddler that got killed. And even though I think it's accidental, a lot of people are like, oh, no, we all hate this woman. Okay, she got away from her kid, the kid got drowned, and so forth and so on. They want to add to the story. They're eating up the media and using it to a point of ridiculousness. And move on. We have other serious cases that we need to talk about, or historical situations. And a lot of the media just clings to that particular case. It's tragic. But so these are some of the things that happen, is that people just don't want to believe it, or people can't move forward. There's a multitude of issues going on with each and every case. Treasure hunting is very complicated.
Ginette, we're up on an hour now for you to give out, how people can get a hold of you or things like that. So
Sure. I want to thank you for having me. And people can get a hold of me via my new website. Let's go with my Facebook first. I manage my father's Facebook. It's Louis, Louis, Matacia, M as in Mary, Atacia. Again, it's Matacia. That's one way to reach me. Or my email is reachginette, GINETTE, @gmail.com. Again, it's reachginette @gmail.com. A lot of times you can also look up my website. Sometimes it's hard to get into it. It's called Ginette Lucas. That's my married name. My name is spelled GINETTE. Last name is LUCAS. And it's under Paranormal Advisor. My new website is coming out shortly. It will probably be up next week when you put this up. and it's under Ginette Lucas. And it will cover some of the other people I work with, like astrology and ghost hunting. And there's one thing I want to talk about. We'll have to do a show on it for fun. A couple of shows that you talked about. You want to go after the Metrio, the big people?
Well, I'm actively working on a site where I think there are some now, and so a couple sites, and so yes.
Well, let me send me a map, and I'll tell you where they are.
Awesome.
And we'll do a show on it.
Awesome.
And yeah, let's pinpoint it. But remember, if you're looking for the Metrio people, they were so darn big. The only thing that may be left of them would be a skull and their teeth. So when you dowse, are you a dowser too, or you're not?
No, I am not. I've tried it, but I haven't been able to get it to work for me. But I haven't tried it real hard or real seriously, and I understand that that's something that, you know, with time and practice you can get that ability. I just haven't spent the time or the practice to do that.
Okay, well, if I find them, you're going to give me a letter of reference. If you make a lot of money, you're going to give me 10 or 15%.
Heck, man, it's 50-50.
I'll do that too. Well, here's what I found, and you know, so we'll do a show on the Metrio people, but the key factor on finding a missing body is, even if it's archaeological dig material, you have to go for the teeth. You have to dowse for the teeth.
Interesting.
The teeth, as of today's date, in the last so many years, you've got gold in the teeth or amalgam in the teeth, and that all reacts to the metal detectors. But on the Metrio people, some of them have jewelry on, and you make it an area where the gold is, and there's nothing else there. There's no bone, no nothing. And you make it something that looks like a piece of wood, and it's its finger. So you really have to pay attention to the detail. But I think it would be fun to do, and I sent you a picture of, I'm working on some pirate treasure, and this is another form of treasure, so it's all fun and it's family friendly. You should get your nephew involved. Is it your nephew or your grandson?
My grandson.
You should get him involved, and he should join a chapter of the Dowsing Society and learn how to dowse, and then we'll send him out because he'll probably be able to sense it. And I can tell him how to use the device's body dowsing, and he'll be your new little Geiger counter or metal detector.
Awesome.
Yeah, but that would be a great subject. We'll cover a few subjects for you: ghost hunting and treasure. We can cover astrology and treasure. I mean, there is a timing for everything. Everything has a pattern. So thanks for having me. And if you need to reach me, my home phone number is area code 571-358-1444. Again, in Virginia, it's 571-358-1444. And thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. And we have a lot of pictures for you. Enjoy.
Thanks, Ginette. And I'll put all that information down in the descriptions here below, so that they can just click on it and get to your website and that. And so, thank you. I appreciate you, Ginette. And that's a wrap.